should start from. Not start from asking Rwanda, are you supporting M23 or not? Are you still denying it? Because you are asking the wrong question. The issue is not whether anybody supports M23 or not. The issue is, what is actually the problem of M23? That's the question you should have asked, in fact.
In a recent press conference, Rwandan President Paul Kagame was asked very difficult questions by a French journalist. He was asked whether he loves to be feared by the West and whether he backs the M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yet, the West, showing how low it can stoop, spreads propaganda, showing Paul Kagame as a bloodthirsty tyrant. Many wonder whether the West would do the same with a leader from Europe who is white. But how did Paul Kagame take and answer these difficult questions, embarrassing the West in his signature style? Let's know about that in this video.
Describe you as a cruel and bloodthirsty tyrant. Do you try to change this image? For example, in most of your official photographs, you look severe and distant. This can contribute to fueling controversy. Why don't you wear a slight smile like all your fellow presidents around the world? Do you ultimately like or dislike being fed, sometimes hated, in the Western world? Thank you.
Kagame is often portrayed in the Western media as a tyrant and a dictator who can do anything to stay in power. However, how he took his country out of genocide and brought prosperity is never paid attention to. It's done because he is a black man from Africa who is willing to do everything for his country to make it a model state for not only Africa, but for the rest of the world. When he was asked about his thoughts on how the West portrays him, everyone expected he would be infuriated and give a solid reply to the West. But he did not, and the reason was strategic. The West wanted to provoke him so he could be aggressive and their propaganda could be proven right. Therefore, we see Paul Kagame in a new mood and tone, handling the West's tactics. He stayed calm and polite while making a charge on the West in a way never seen before. Listen to his words carefully.
I think you have summarized well the questions that have been there but not asked directly. But for the smile, I think I have to borrow either some talent or actually directly the smile from some people. But the fact that it is the smile is lacking on me is not my making. Maybe it happens accidentally. But very interesting way of putting your question. I tried to answer it this way.
The West always tries to portray Kagame as a mysterious man who is always hiding something from his people. That's done because Kagame does not look like a tyrant or a dictator physically. Therefore, to prove the point that he really is a dictator, the West makes use of speculations that Kagame deliberately does not smile.
Starting with who is me, who is the person. I have me is the person you see. I'm not hiding anything. What you see in me is what I am. If you are just going by the looks or by whatever, or what I do more, I think is what may describe me than my physical looks.
Just imagine how hard the Western media is trying to find something they can use against Kagame. But Kagame answered rationally, saying that if we truly were a tyrant, he could never always hide that. There is always a point that betrays someone who is hiding, a leak that shows how a person really is.
So I wanted to say, what you see is what you get with me. In most cases, in words or in deeds, they relate. My deeds and my words tend to relate. My looks may be different from that, may be different from my deeds and how I think. But in any case, isn't the description of the looks also subjective? There are people who see me as through the looks as a terrible person.
Answering the question about him being a tyrant, he rationally said that one person cannot be bloodthirsty to that extent. Yes, the Western media tries to portray him as a dictator, but they don't have any rational evidence. They just speculate, which is in itself questionable. How big media houses and the journalists working in them project their agendas and biases in whatever they write and show is quite concerning.
About tyrant or cruel or... You see, you can't be bad to that extent. Cruel or a tyrant or bloodthirsty or whatever, and hide it. It's difficult. Even if you try to hide it, there is a moment it betrays you. And that also, once it has come out or once it is not there, you register the feeling, the description, from people who have to deal with you.
But Kagame simply said that he does not care about the negative voices of the journalists because he knows what he is doing. He said that all of Rwanda praises him for what he has done for the country. And therefore, if there are 10 to 20 people who have vowed to portray Kagame bad, it simply won't work because his people know him better than anyone else.
And it wouldn't just be confined to the press, because the press is full of individuals. But these individuals don't add up to a population that is as big as Rwanda's, even if Rwanda is very small. These are just individuals. 5 in France, 10 in America, 3 in China, 2 in Belgium, and so on and so forth. If you add all of them up, and they are even all negative and saying things about me, surely these can't be the people that are right.
Kagame said that the journalists who pass judgments about him are, interestingly, those who have never met him. However, whatever they write about Kagame is sold because it's negative, and the people in the West buy something if it's either showing Africa poor or its leaders as dictators. Perhaps it's part of their fanatics.
But they only take advantage of the platform they have, they are able to command some voice that they put out there for people to, even people who don't know what you're talking. There are many people who even don't know about Kagame and get to know him by what a journalist has said, or one in the press has said. And in many cases, in my experience, some of them have started by hearing what the journalist said, and they ended up saying, but we've been told lies.
He said that most people in the West know him by what the journalists wrote about him. Therefore, even if they meet the real Kagame, they see him through the lens that those journalists made. The filters in their minds ignore the real Kagame and try to pick actions that prove Kagame is a dictator. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. But why does the Western media portray Rwanda and other countries so backward and chaotic? Well, Paul Kagame revealed the real reason so rightly. Listen to what he said.
And of course, there is a particularity with the Western press. The Western press, you will find out there are things that were said about this country 30 years ago, 25 years ago, that are being repeated now, which means, according to them, nothing has changed. They talk about Rwanda, very poor population. We are poor. We are not where the developed countries are, for sure. But this poverty, the way it was in 1995, in 2000, is not the way it is in 2024.
Paul Kagame is a real genius who knows how to answer how clever the media tries to become. He revealed that the Western media deliberately reports about Rwanda and other African countries the way it did about 30 years ago. When Rwanda was in chaos and the Western media was covering the incidents, it created a blind spot in the West about modern-day Rwanda.
But somebody will keep writing in the press, like what we have today is the same thing as we had 25 years ago, and keep just rubbing it in. You know, even the Kagame and his looks and so on, I've been trying, in recent days I've been trying with a smile. Maybe it's not a good smile, but I've been trying. So the Kagame you saw in 95, in 94, 2000, anyway, there was no smile. There was nothing to smile about, so I didn't smile. But now, with some progress, I can afford some smile.
Today, as Rwanda has changed dramatically, becoming one of the most developed and prosperous nations in Africa, the Western media is standing on the same point. It's surprising that journalists are allowed to report falsely based on their beliefs created 30 years ago. And when people in the Western world read those reports and listen to the news reported by people who visited Rwanda decades ago, they believe chaos is happening. Also, the Western media prefers to report the bad side of Africa, a side that exists in even the European countries.
So that's why I can't accept that anyone who has powers over somebody else to the point of dictating. Even the most powerful don't have power over us, how we live, how we do. So, but the Kagame has been shaped by that philosophy, that understanding that, well, I try like any human being and do my best, do what I can do what I have to do. I may have flaws, make mistakes, own up and do good things, benefit others.
But why has the West started targeting Paul Kagame? Well, earlier, supporting Paul Kagame was a West's agenda because the West wanted to get rid of the guilt of not stopping the 1994 genocide. After 1994, the country was in tatters, and Paul Kagame struggled to build a nation that could compete with the world. Today, it's a reality. Yet, the West did not want that. The West cannot see Paul Kagame making bold decisions that could even marginalize the Western countries. Therefore, propaganda was created against him so he could be dictated to and made to do what the West wanted. But those days are over, as Kagame candidly said.
Well, those who accuse us, I would ask them why they actually don't support M23 themselves, including AFP, you as a journalist. Why don't you support M23? Or why is the question, you support M23 or you don't support M23? First of all, what is M23? M23 is an organization born in and out of Congo. That's number one. Number two, These are Congolese. And you will hear even Congo admit it.
But what did Kagame say about backing M23 rebels in Congo? Well, he sent shockwaves to France and the West while answering this question. Pay close attention to what he says.
Now, why do they exist? Why are they fighting? Why do they have arms? Is another question. It is also a simple question. They exist because they have been denied their rights as citizens of that country. They are called Tutsis of Rwanda. Fine. But then you need to be educated also a little bit about history. We have Rwandan communities in Congo who are Congolese, and by the way, these are not just Tutsis, it is the same social structure.
Kagame said that the countries accusing Rwanda, by which he meant France, the United States, and the whole West, should ask themselves why they are not supporting M23. Why don't they support those who are being oppressed and not given their rights? Where are the human rights here?
Now, why do they exist? Why are they fighting? Why do they have arms? Is another question. It is also a simple question. They exist because they have been denied their rights as citizens of that country. They are called Tutsis of Rwanda. Fine. But then you need to be educated also a little bit about history. We have Rwandan communities in Congo who are Congolese, and by the way, these are not just Tutsis, it is the same social structure.
He summed it up in the best way. He said Rwanda should not be questioned about supporting M23 rebels because that's irrelevant. The reason why M23 rebels exist in Congo is because they are denied their rights, and injustices are done to them. They are the hunted ones in Congo.
We have 100,000 people originating from this community, 100,000 who have been living here in Rwanda in refugee camps for the last 2 decades. Why? Because they are being uprooted from their ancestral homes, persecuted, and sent across. In fact, there are more in Uganda. There are 300, there's 100,000 here, there are hundreds of thousands there in Uganda, more numbers. So M23 is born out of that situation.
Do you think Paul Kagame answered in a perfect manner? Or did he need to be aggressive and offensive to keep the West in its place? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on Paul Kagame and whether he is a tyrant or a visionary leader. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.